So, back to my book, 7 Years to Life, Chapter 9, Sing Choirs of Angels. I was in first grade, and just prior to school letting out for the summer, I was told, as was the other male members of my class, that by the time school was to start again, that there was a decision to be made regarding second grade. It did strike me as odd that only the boys had to make this decision. It was my first insight to just how blatantly sexist the Catholic Church was at that time. We had to decide whether we were going to be choir boys or altar boys. The decision was relatively easy because a few months back my cousin Patricia had taken me to see the movie Love Me Tender. She was a hopeless Elvis Presley fan, like most young teenage girls back then. What I did not expect was that this movie would begin for me a lifelong respect and admiration for the talent that Elvis possessed. Toward the end of the book, there will be chapters on the people that impacted and influenced me in a positive, life-changing manner. From the moment I stepped out of that movie theater, my love affair with singing began, so for that reason, the choir was an easy choice. The second reason that prompted me to choose the choir was that I was deathly afraid of being an altar boy. It is incredible to think that after attending just 1 year at St. Teresa's, the fear of God was ingrained in my psyche. As an altar boy, you were essentially on stage, or the altar, for all to see, and the last thing I wanted to happen was to somehow make a mistake that would fuck up the body and blood of Jesus Christ. I became a choir boy, and much to my surprise, it was one of the most rewarding experiences in my life. The choir consisted of approximately 70 members, 50 of which were boys in the 8th grade or younger. The rest of the choir consisted of 20 adult men. Our choir leader, Paul LaMedica, was the epitome of a temperamental perfectionist. The practices were grueling because by the end of each practice we had to be technically perfect. The only days we did not practice were on Saturdays and Mondays. We sang at every Mass on Sunday and at benediction each Wednesday. A typical practice lasted 2.5 to 3 hours, and those practices took place after school. So you can imagine the exhaustion I felt when I walked through the door of my apartment at 5 or 6 o'clock, only to realize that I still had roughly 45 minutes to 1 hour of homework to do. Additionally, if we had special events to prepare for, such as Easter or Christmas, believe me, we practiced long and hard on Saturdays. At first I thought I made a horrible mistake by joining the choir, but as time went on, the hard work paid off. We had become quite good, and before you knew it, it was standing room only at every Mass on every Sunday. Our reputation spread, and we started to get numerous requests to sing at special events. We had become quite well known throughout the boroughs and eventually the state. There had been talk of our choir actually making an appearance on the Ed Sullivan Show. I do not know why that never came to fruition. However, we did record an album called Christmas at St. Teresa's, where the choir performed on the altar rather than in the choir loft for the first time. I can remember the feeling of looking at all the people in the church, and down the center you were still also able to see the line going out the front door. I thought to myself how amazing it was that all these people came to see us. We did not let them down. The choir was dressed as Benedictine monks, and we sounded not only beautiful, but heavenly. Russell Kasem was the soloist for the boys on 2 hymns, and hearing him that night washed away the jealousy I had for him because I was not a soloist. I couldn't hold a candle to him anyway. It was also a special night because Mr. LaMedica sang solo on Little Town of Bethlehem and Silent Night. I had heard him sing before and knew that he had a special gift. However, this night in my short life, he was the greatest singer I had ever heard. I have sung Silent Night for my wife, and she loves it when I do. I have based my version partly on the style of Elvis Presley, but mostly on the virtuosity of Paul LaMedica. We did get on a local show called Captain Jet that was similar to the national show Captain Satellite. We also did a tour of many hospitals in New York City. We sang for terminally ill patients, both adults and children. For adults, we usually sang the traditional Christmas hymns, and for the children, it was the fun songs like Jingle Bells, Frosty the Snowman, and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, among others. We were also called upon to perform for many Catholic dignitaries, including one time for some cardinals who had made the trip from Rome for a variety of reasons, but I recall when we were done performing, one of the cardinals telling us the trip would have been well worth it just to hear us. As summer was coming to an end each year, I can remember the bittersweet feelings that enveloped me. It was like a catch-22. I dreaded the idea of going back to school to learn under duress and fear, but I relished the idea of going back to choir with all of its grueling practices and hard work and singing my ass off. I spent 5 years singing in the choir, and the work never got easier, but we always got better. I loved every minute of it, and the only regret that I have is after moving to California, things changed, and I wish I had the opportunity to let Paul LaMedica know, adult to adult, what I thought of his unbelievable voice, and to thank him for making one of the hardest things to have accomplished in my life one of the most pleasurable and experiential chapters of my life.